E-Science class presented by Fatima Convent High School, Chapter 14 Natural Resources, myself Dipali. Let us look into the chapter further. Now let us see what does the water resource tell us about. Water is a wonderful liquid. Water occupies a very large area on the earth's surface and is also found underground. Some amount of water exists in the form of water vapor in the atmosphere. Most of the water in the most of the water on the surface of the earth is found in sea and in ocean and is saline, means salty. Fresh water is found in frozen in ice caps at two poles and on snow-covered mountains. The underground water and the river water, lakes and ponds is also fresh. However, the availability of fresh water varies from place to place. Practically every summer, most places have to face a shortage of water, and in rural areas where water supply system has not been installed, at those places the drinking water availability is very less, and so people are forced to spend considerable amount of time in fetching water from faraway resources. Many municipal corporations are trying water harvesting techniques to improve the availability of water. Find out if you have a water harvesting system around you or in your house. But water is why so much necessary? And do all organisms require water? All cellular processes take place in a water medium because it is the universal solvent. All reactions takes place within our body and within the cell occur between substances that are dissolved in water. Substances are also transported from one part of the body to other in a dissolved form. Hence, organisms need to maintain level of water within their bodies in order to stay alive. Terrestrial life forms require fresh water for this because their body cannot tolerate or get rid of high amount of dissolved salt in saline water. Thus water sources need to be easily accessible for animals and plants to survive on land. So these are the necessities of water. Now, let us take a small area, say 1 meter square, near a water body. It may be a river, stream, pond, or lake. Count the number of different animals and plants in this area. After check the number of individual of each type of or species. Compare this with the number of individual both animals and plants found in an area of same size in a dry rocky region. Is the variety of plants and animals same in both these areas? Obviously no, because the water requirement is different, and according to that they need to have different adaptations. Select and mark out a small area about 1 meter square in some unused land in or near your school. As in this above activity, count the number of different animals and plants in this area and the number of individuals of each species. What will you observe? That remember to do this in the same place twice in a year, once summer or the dry season and once after it. You will see lots of variation in the number of plants and animals growing there in the region as well as in the season. Now, after compiling the result of the above two activities, think if there is any relation between the amount of available water and the number and variety of plants and animals that can live in a given area. If there is a relationship, where do you think you would find a greater variety and abundance of life? In a region that receives 5 centimeter of rainfall in year or a region that receives 200 centimeter of rainfall in a year. Find the map showing rainfall pattern in Atlas and predict which states in India would have approximate a maximum biodiversity and which would have the least. Obviously, the plants and animals growing in the area which receives more rain will be more and will be having larger variety, whereas those living in a dry area will have less. Can you think any way to check whether the prediction is correct? The availability of water decides not only the number of individuals of each species that are able to survive in a particular area, but it also decides the diversity of life. Of course, the availability of water is not the only factor that decides the sustainability of life in a region. Other factors like temperature and nature of soil also matters, but water is one major resource which determines life on land. Now let us check what is water pollution. Water dissolves the fertilizers and pesticides that we use on our farms. So some percentage of these substances are washed into the water bodies. Sewage from our towns and cities and waste from factories are all dumped into the rivers or lakes. Specific industries also use water for cooling in various operations and later return this hot water to water bodies. Another manner in which the water in the river can be affected is when water is released from dam. The water inside the deep reservoirs could be cooler than the water on the surface which might get heated by sun. All these can affect the life forms that are found in these water bodies in various ways. It can encourage the growth of some life forms and harm some other life forms. This effect affects the balance between various organisms which had been established in that system. So we use the term water pollution to cover the following facts. Addition of undesirable substances to water bodies. These substances could be fertilizers and pesticides used in farming, or they should be poisonous substances like mercury salts which are used in paper industries. This could also be disease causing organisms like the bacteria which cause cholera. The removal of removal of desirable substances from water bodies, dissolved oxygen is used by animals and plants that live in water. Any change that reduces the amount of these dissolved the removal of desirable substances from water bodies, dissolved oxygen, is used by the animals and plants that live in water. Any change that reduces the amount of this dissolved oxygen would adversely affect these aquatic organisms. Other nutrients could also be depleted from the water bodies. A change in the temperature, aquatic organisms are used to certain range of temperature in water body where they live, and a sudden marked change in this temperature could be dangerous for them or affect their breeding. The eggs and larvae of various animals are particularly sustainable to temperature change. So, these are the three major effects of water pollution. The addition of poisonous and harmful substances to the water bodies may cause either the disease causing bacteria to multiply and cause harm to the people using it. Removal of dissolved oxygen by the excess of use of substances being added from the water bodies and causing effect on the animals and plants. And the change in temperature can cause effect on the reproductive system of the animals. So this is how water can be affected. Now let us see what is riches in soil. Now how is soil an important natural resource? Soil is an important resource that decides the diversity of life in an area. But what is the soil and how is it formed? The outermost layer of the earth is called the crust, and the mineral found in this layer supply a variety of nutrients to life forms. So the crust of the earth is called the outermost layer. But these minerals will not be available to the organisms of if the minerals are bound up in big rocks. Over a long period of time, thousands and millions of years, the rocks at our or near the surface of the earth are broken down by various physical, chemical, and biological processes. And this end product of this breaking down is the fine particles of soil. So the soil is formed by breaking down of huge mineral rocks. But what are the factors or process that makes the soil? First is the sun. The sun heats up rock during the day that they expand. At night these rocks cool down and contract. Since all parts of the rocks do not expand and contract at same rate, this results in big cracks, and ultimately the huge rocks break up into small pieces. So the heat of the sun creates cracks, and the cracks causes the huge rock to break down. The second important factor is water. Water helps in the formation of soil in two ways. One, water would get into the cracks in the rock formed due to the uneven heating of the sun. If this water later freezes, it would make crack widen. Can you think why this would be? Because we know that volume of ice is more than volume of water. Two flowing water wears away even hard rocks over long period of time. Fast flowing water often carries big and small particles of rock downstream. These rocks rub against other rocks, and the resultant abrasions causes the rock to wear down, that is break down into smaller and smaller particles. And the rock are then takes these particles along with it and deposit to it further down its path. Soil is thus found in a place far away from its parent rock. Now you have the wind. In a process similar to the way in which water rubs against rocks and wears down, strong winds also erode rock down. The wind also carries sand from one place to another like water does. Living organisms also influence the formation of soil. So, wind, water, sun, and living organism. The lichens which I read about earlier also grow on the surface of rocks. While growing, they release certain substances that causes the rock surface to powder down and form a thin layer of soil. Other small plants like moss and are able to grow on this surface now and then cause the cracks to break up further. And the roots of big trees sometimes go into the cracks in the rocks, and as the roots grow bigger, the cracks are forced to become stronger and wider, and they break the rock. Take some soil and put it in a beaker containing water. The water should be at least 5 times the amount of soil taken. Stir the soil and water vigorously and allow the soil to settle down. Observe after some time. Is the soil at the bottom of the beaker homogeneous or has layered formed? If layers are formed, how is one layer different from another? Is there anything floating on the surface of water? Do you think how substances would have dissolved in water? How would you check? As you have seen, soil is a mixture. It contains many small particles of rock of different sizes. It also contains bits of decaying living organisms called humus. In addition, soil contains various forms of microscopic life. The type of soil is decided by the average size of particles found in it, and the quality of soil is decided by the amount of humus and the microscopic organisms found in it. Humus is the major factor deciding the structure of soil because it causes the soil to become more porous and allows water and air to pertain deep underground. So, according to these presence of humus, microscopic organisms, and the rock size, the soil can be categorized into various categories. The mineral nutrients that are found in a particular soil depends on the rock it was formed from. The nutrient content of a soil, the amount of humus present in it and the depth of the soil are some of the factors that decide which plant will thrive on that soil. Thus, the topmost layer of the soil that contains humus and living organism in addition to the soil particle is called topsoil. The quality of topsoil is an important factor that decides the biodiversity in that area because that only decides what kind of plants will be growing. Modern farming practices involve the use of large amount of fertilizers and pesticides. Use of these substances over long period of time can destroy the soil structure by killing the soil microorganisms that recycles nutrients in the soil. It also kills the earthworm which are an instrumental in making the rich humus, very important friend of farmers. Fertile soil can quickly be turned barren if sustainable practices are not followed. Removal of useful component from soil and addition of other substances which adversely affect the fertility of the soil and kill the diversity of organisms that live in it is called as soil pollution. So the soil that we see today is one place has been created over very long period of time. However, some of the factors that create the soil in the first place and brought the soil to that place may be responsible for removal of the soil too. The fine particles of soil may be carried away by following water or wind. If all the soil gets washed away and the rock underneath are exposed, we have lost a valuable resource because very little will grow on the rock. So you have to be careful and conserving the soil. Take two identical trays and fill them with soil. Plant mustard or green gram or paddy in one of the tray and water both the plant trays regularly for a few days till the first tray is covered by plant growth. Now tilt both the trays and fix them in that position. Make sure that both the trays are tilted at the same angle. Pour equal amount of water gently on both the trays such that the water flows out of the tray. Study the amount of soil which is carried out of the tray. Is the amount same in both the trays? Now pour equal amount of water on both the trays from a height. Pour 3 or 4 times the amount that you poured earlier. You will see that study the amount of soil that is carried away out of the tray now. Is the amount same in both the trays? Is the amount of soil there is carried out more or less equal to the amount washed out earlier? The roots of the plant have an important role in preventing soil erosion. Washing away of soil is called as soil erosion. The large scale deforestation that is happening all over the world not only destroys biodiversity, it also leads to soil erosion. Topsoil that is bare of vegetation is likely to be removed very quickly, and this is accelerated in hilly areas and or mountainous regions. This process of soil erosion is very difficult to reverse. Vegetative cover on the ground has a role to play in percolation of water into the deeper layer which increases the groundwater. So it becomes very important for us to protect all the three important natural resources. Now in the next session we are going to study about biogeochemical cycles. Thank you.